times there are a lot of hoax photos of ectoplasm, and he explains that there are a lot of hoaxes that use cotton and other like gauze, but infrared light shows how that's a fake. But there's also a lot of real photos of ectoplasm that they haven't been proved to be a fake, at least. And it was from the mystic British medium Jack Weber.
Oh.
So something that I think that would be really interesting that I wish they would have done in this book is when they talk about photos, to include those photos, or at least a photo.
Yes.
A lot of times in this book, there will be, line drawings or photo, like stock photos. But when it comes to talking about...
To historical photos or something.
Yeah, to what he's describing as, like a photo that hasn't been proved to be a fraud. I would have loved to have, even though it's black and white, I would have loved to have something there to show, so I can have a point of reference. I don't have to go looking for it on the internet for,
That's great.
However long.
I know. That would be great to have.
Yeah, it really would be. There's like just stock photos, like, for example, I'm on page 88. They're talking about ghost vehicles. There's just a stock photo of, looks like nighttime traffic. You can see someone's headlights as like a long time exposure.
Yeah.
And that's not a ghost photo. That's
I have a very nice story about a ghost car, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What?
And
okay.
well,
let's hear
it. We were driving in Pennsylvania, and this, or to Pennsylvania at the time. And it was, in the middle of nowhere, as always, between, mountains and things. And there's this period car, like 1930s, all black, and the person that, I could see the car coming, so it's not that it was just there. I could see it coming, and it come for, it approached and all of that. And it was a very odd car, because obviously it was not a car that you see all the time. It's an historical car. So it's those kind of cars with the little top thing and, of fabric and all of that, and the little wheel. And at the wheel was this man, and the man had, like, he was all dressed up with clothes of the time, with the black suit, with a little, thing. Everything was, and the hat and everything, so everything was perfect. And he passed, he was very slow, obviously, not very slow, but he was slower than us. And we could see it. It was approaching, and we could see it approaching, and it was very, very interesting. And sometimes people have these cars, and they really have them, and they show, the car in car shows, and they have that, a lot here. And I thought, oh, that's a very nice, outfit to go with a car. I thought to myself, because it's perfect. It's really kind of like the 1930s. So the car passed us, and we could hear the car, you can hear a car passing you, right? Even if it is that kind of car, it would have some kind of noise, right?
Yeah, I'm sure like the older cars have exhaust.
Yeah,
sound.
Yeah. And there was no sound. Now, mind you, this is summer, so we have like windows and
Yeah.
There was no sound. And because there was no sound, so when he passes by us, because there was no sound, I looked back to see, and when I looked back, there was nothing.
Wow.
That's really freaky.
It kind of reminds me of
it was
a friend of mine. He was, this is in California.
Yeah.
He was with his friends. They were crossing underneath this bridge that, there's train tracks, but, in certain parts of California, the train tracks, it's like old train tracks, and, they've repaved it over the road, and it's not functional anymore. Well, they were walking underneath these train tracks, and they heard the sound of a train coming, and it was really, really loud. Like, it was right on top of them, and everything was shaking, and they could hear the wheels turning on the metal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were like, what's going on? So they went up to the top, and there was nothing there, and the sound just completely went away.
Amazing. Yeah, there's a lot of vessels, let's just say, because there are boats also in ships that are hunted. So they're I don't know what it is. I mean, we would imagine that spirits are spirits, and we can just kind of understand a little bit better that than an object being appearing and disappearing. But it's very interesting because some people think and have this kind of theory that it's just a memory imprinted in the in the.
There are times
time.
when it is, but there are times when it's not. And I'm very I'm a medium, so I have had experiences with both. I'll walk into a room and I'll just feel like there's a loop playing. But there are other times, like for example, when I was 13, I went with my family on a trip to England. Mm-hmm. And we went to the Tower of London, and I didn't encounter any of King Henry VIII's wives, like has been repeated ad nauseum. But surprisingly, I went into the throne room in the Tower of London, and it's a very beautiful room. If you ever see photos of it, it's very ornate, and the whole tower, aside from where they keep the crown jewels, it's very bland. It's just a bunch of old rocks and nicely paved. It's a nice little green area. So we walked into the throne room, and I thought, wow, this is really beautiful. And I asked my mom to get her camera out of her bag. Well, as she's reaching in her bag trying to search for the camera, I immediately got this tension building up in me, and I felt really anxious, and I felt almost like there was something standing in front of me intimidating me. And I heard this voice in my head, and it said, "What are you doing in here? Get out of here now!" And
wow.
One second I'm asking my mom for the camera, and I want to take pictures, and then the next second I'm shaking and telling my mom, "We got to get out of here." And she's completely oblivious to what's going on. And literally, as soon as I walked out of those doors to the other end, I was outside. I was fine. Now, I don't hear anything about the ghost in the throne room in the Tower of London. So if anyone is listening, I would love to know if anyone knows if there is someone hanging out in the throne room of the Tower of London. And I don't think it was Anne Boleyn. So
I know. So 3 cauldrons for this, right?
Yeah, 3 cauldrons. I'm sorry, Ray, but it's like I said, it's the same. A lot of the same stuff that's been repeated ad nauseum in a bunch of other books. There is a section in the back of the book that explains how to do your own ghost hunting if you're so inclined. The technical tools like an EMF or electromagnetic field meter, cameras, EVP recorders, infrared thermometers. The normal things you might see. Turning on the TV and having them do their own ghost investigation. And there's also a big section in the back of the book for further reading, which it's good if this might be
if
something for someone. Yeah, and honestly, for me personally, I would like to go further because this is more of a bare basic kind of explanation of ghosts and ghost stories. Yeah. So three cauldrons.
Yeah. So that's fine. That's a wonderful book by Weiser, the Field Guide to Ghosts, right?
Yes, the Weiser Field Guide to Ghosts, Apparitions, Spirits, Spectral Lights, and Other Hauntings of History and Legend.
So if you have a passion for ghosts and spirits, and ghosts and not so ghosts.
The unseen things of the world. Let's just, maybe that would be a little bit more appropriate.
That would be a little bit more appropriate. Just by this book. Weiser is it's a wonderful, wonderful publisher, and I'm sure that it's www.weiser.com.
Weiser, actually. Yeah, let me just do a double check. I think,
Yeah.
it's redwheelwiser.com.
Redwheelwiser.com. So, and you can find this fantastic book that we have here in there. And if you have a passion for those, Three Cauldrons from Indigo Australia. That was very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you will be on the chat room, right?
Yes, I will be.
Okay.
And we won't have another Witch Reads for 2 weeks, right?
Yes.
We're not going to have a show
Yes.
in the next 2 weeks.
That's true.
So I'll see you back in 2 weeks.
Yes. Yes. And, well, but we will have the Portuguese version of Witch Talk next tomorrow.
Ooh.
It's the second part, and people are asking me if they want, they can have this translated because it's a very nice theme. I mean, it's really nice. It's the Iberian tradition, which is something that it's really not talked about, and it's an indigenous kind of tradition from Europe, and it's Portugal and Spain. So it's very interesting to listen to it. And the last one on the last Monday was about traditional Wicca, which was very interesting too. Only in Portuguese. So, and people, it's very interesting because I don't have Portuguese people or people that speak Portuguese asking for me to translate the shows in English. Of English shows to Portuguese or to subtitle them, but I do have people, English people, that ask for the Portuguese shows to be translated or subtitled because it's very easy. I mean, it's a very nice theme, and it's not easy to translate because it's kind of, it has its specific, and I wanted Isabel, which is one of our guests. I wanted Isabel to really kind of be at ease and speak in her own language about this. So we probably will have, I don't know how to do it, but we'll probably will have to do that or something very similar. So
that would be fantastic because I don't speak Portuguese. And it sounds amazing. So
it is very good. It's very good. Now, so tomorrow another Witch Talk in Portuguese, and that's it. It was just 2 on 2 Mondays, and then we will not have Witch Talk for 2 weeks, right? That's it. Right,
and we'll be back on September 25th with Jade Soul Luna.
That's going to be a very good show. Actually, we have a premiere, right, on that show.
Yes, we have a world premiere of his new music video. So.
Yes, so we will be showing his video right on Witch Talk for the first time in the world. So here we are. Thank you so much for being here and for this review. I will.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Kerrigan.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that was in Australia. Guide to Ghosts. Very nice book. Now we're going now to introduce today. It will be a wonderful show, I'm sure, and we have a lot to talk about. So without further ado, here we go. A Canaanite pagan for over 12 years, Tess Dawson leads the largest online Canaanite pagan groups, teach workshops, conducts rituals, and serves as a leader in the Near Eastern pagan community. She has written for Witches and Pagans, Pangaea, Sage Women, Circle Pentacle, The Beltane Papers, and a few anthologies. She has taught classes across the U.S., from the inland Northwest through the mid-Atlantic states. Her book, Whisper of Stone, Natib Qadish, Modern Canaanite Religion, was published in 2009, and the more recent Anointed, a devotional anthology for the deities of the Near and Middle East, was published in July 2011. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest today on Witch Talk, Tess Dawson. Hello, Hello, Tess. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to Witch Talk.
It's great to be here.
Well, one of the things that I want to first ask to you, this is not really, the ancient Canaanite religion. It's not something that we heard about a lot, or anything from there or from that region. It's not really talked about. People really kind of went away from that when they decided to be polytheists or or pagan. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So you just kind of you go out of that, and you didn't. So I think that this is a personal choice, obviously. But can you tell us why? And how did this happen? How did you go from and fell in love with this culture?
Well, sure. I started out Christian, raised Christian as a child, and I didn't really have a problem with my birth religion. I mean, there were certain issues I totally disagreed with, but I didn't hate it. I didn't have the vitriol for it that some people have developed over the years. I guess too much fun, huh?
Yes.
Bible craft,
Yes.
But, I diverged away from it because I felt that it didn't fit, and I didn't fit, and I disagreed with a lot of the tenets of it. And I ended up practicing some form of eclectic paganism and eclectic Wicca for a short time. And I just didn't feel like that fit with me either. It just wasn't working. I didn't feel like I had that personal relationship with the divine that I wanted. I didn't feel at home. So I prayed, just generally directing my thoughts outward. Hey, is there anyone out there? Does anyone even care? Hello?
Yeah.
Hi, how are ya? Long distance.
Yes.
Yeah. And at one point, I finally got an answer. And that answer was basically, I'm here, I care. And I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. I haven't had this experience before.
Yeah.
Well, okay, if you are just part of my own subconscious talking to me, giving me good advice, I can deal with that. But if you're not, I kind of need a little evidence here.
Yes.
So I asked for a name, and I got a name of a goddess I had never heard of before.
Yes.
So I looked up that goddess, and lo and behold, she did exist.
Wow.
So that was my moment of, oh my.
But at this point, you had never ever had contact with anything pertain to Canaanite or anything pertain to that particular type of or the polytheism or any gods or any goddesses of that particular region. Nothing.
No, the only contact I had was through my Christian upbringings. That was it.
Now, one of the questions...
Isn't that wild?
That's really wild. And I want to talk to you about this because you're a special person. Because I
hope that's not in a short bus sort of way.
No, it's not. It's really good. It's a good thing.
Okay.
It's a good thing. But because sometimes I just use things without really the intent of being perceived as, whatever it is normally, because I'm Portuguese. So my first language is Portuguese, and sometimes I kind of translate what I think that it's kind of close to what I wanted to say. And sometimes it gets kind of misperceived. No, but you're really special because you are, special in a way that you're kind of someone that really are practicing and understanding this ancient religion, and from that particular place, from that particular region, from that particular culture. And we know also that there is other gods that come from there. All the monotheistic religions, the God that came from there. So what is your theory about this? What happened? I mean, we know that he was a tribal god, right? But what happened with this?
Are you talking the God of
the God of the Christian? Yes, yeah.
With the capital G. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So do you have kind of a notion? Because this is kind of my curiosity. What happened, and what happened to the rest of us? What happened to the polytheists, the polytheists that had to subdue or to actually agree with whatever they were saying that was the true God? You know what I mean? So what happened? Do you know what happened?
Like as in how there came to be the God with the singular G?
Yes.
Sure. There's a lot of scholarly theories on that, and there's probably as many theories as there are scholars. So
yes.
I'll tell you what makes sense to me.
Yes.
Basically, God with the singular G is a conglomerate of a lot of different deities. But first and foremost, he tends to linguistically be represented by El or Elu in the Canaanite, in the Ugaritic pantheon specifically. And Elu is his Ugaritic name, El is his Hebrew name, and El basically means God.
Yes.
That's what the word translates as. It's like saying Dios in Spanish.
Yes.
And he was the head god, he is the head god of the pantheon, in the Canaanite pantheon. And he basically, there were many other attributes that were mixed into who he is as a person, or I should say as a deity, as a singular entity. Yes. And it's really interesting because there are many different El, El Elon, El in the highest.
Yes.
El Shaddai, El, and they're all epithets of the same deity. However, the El in the Bible has a very different character than the Elu of the Ugaritic pantheon, and that's because you get bits of Yam, who was assimilated into this character. Yamu is the sea god. He's very very powerful. We're talking primordial force of nature that really doesn't care one whit about humanity. So you have that as well. And basically, over time, the character changed. And you'll even see in the Old Testament, the Torah, the epithets used by the original Ugaritic literature that are later labeled on to El.
Yes. Or
as I should say, as he later came to be known in after the whole incident of Moses and the burning bush. I don't know if you're familiar with that incident.
Yes.
Okay, basically God reintroduces himself from El to the Tetragrammaton, the four letters, Yad-He, Vav-He.
Yes.
So that's when the name change happens, and that's when basically when you really start to see a different character of the God, the monotheistic God in the Bible, or the Torah, I should say.
But do you think that this is because of the people, or this is because he just he just took over? I mean, I know that you're polytheistic, and that means that you believe in many gods, and you do believe that each one of them is kind of separate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Do you think that he just, because there's a lot of things about this, the true God, I am the true God. What was going on in there? I mean, was he a rebel, kind of like, let me just take over? Or what happened?
Well, you could describe it that way. It probably wouldn't be wrong. I think there was basically a new deity that kind of took shape at that time. But I think on a more mundane socio-political level, that there was a certain group of people who were trying to grasp power, and this was one way of doing it.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Now, let's go to your fantastic books. You have two. Actually, you have more. You have two out. One is yes. One is Anointed, and Anointed is a compilation, is an anthology of many texts, and your chapter is absolutely amazing. It's called Olive Oil and Myrrh, Ancient Canaanite Religion for the Modern Age. Now, if you wanted to define this particular, I mean, we know what Greek, Hellenic, polytheism is. We know Roman. We know all of those, but it's very foreign to us, this particular pantheon, or this particular. Although I'm fond of a few of them, but I'm just weird.
Aren't we all?
Oh yes, we are. The word Indigo Estrella just said, you call her special. She's not special. She will be unique. That's the word that I was talking about. I mean, I wanted to.
I guess it's better than eccentric,
Yes, I know. Exactly. So
I have to have more money to be eccentric, right?
I know. Yes, you do. Well, but you know what? We can be without money. It's fine. We're all very eccentric. I mean, we just, we can just be eccentric. It's fine. So this is and I didn't know this, but there is a revival also of the Sumerian religion, which is actually the best known movement here, and it's very interesting. But this is not the Canaanite is not really as well known as these.
Right.
What is the difference? I mean, obviously there are a lot of differences, but won't they just kind of influence one another?
They do influence one another to a certain extent, but they are also two very separate cultures. You got to remember, back in the past, if you're traveling overland routes with a donkey cart and a caravan across the desert, you're not going to have the exchange of ideas and information quite like you're going to have today with the internet. So sure they influence one another, but they also have their own very separate cultures and their own separate languages. The Sumerian language is not a Semitic language. However, the Akkadian language, which came after or was used a little bit during the Sumerian times, then became the lingua franca of the time, of the late Bronze Age. That is a Semitic language. So it's interesting to see that the Canaanites and the Akkadians, well, I should say the Assyrians, they had a similar language family. So basically, like Spanish is to Portuguese.
Yes.
And
very
they
interesting.
used a lot of they used a lot of Akkadian in Canaan as the lingua franca, just to communicate with the Mesopotamian powers.
Well,
However,
lingua franca, for those who don't know, it's the common language, or the language that was used for many people, for many to different regions or cultures.
Like a business language.
Yes. Yeah. So you said, however, what was it?
However, Akkadian uses about 300 different cuneiform signs, and Ugaritic uses about 23. So your guess as to which one's easier to pick up.
Yeah.
How many letters do you want to learn? 23 or 300?
Yes. Of course. But this is very interesting because, again, this is there's a name for this. There's a name for the modern Canaanite religion, which you call, and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, but I'm sure that you will correct me. Natib Qadish, and that's what. Yeah,
that's pretty good. That works for me. Qadish.
Yes, and that's the modern Canaanite religion. Now, what do you think that are the differences in your research that you found that were the things that they did at that time, or in the ancient kind of version of this religion, and what did we have to adapt to practice it today, or is there any difference or no difference at all?
Well, sure. The basis of our information, first off, mostly comes from the city of Ugarit, which is a city in the southernmost part of what we call Syria today. And the library of texts, there were about 2,000 texts found in all, and about 1,500 more or less of them have been translated. And a lot of our mythology, a lot of our stories, our rituals, our information regarding offerings, our deity list, and our holiday calendar, key points of our holiday calendar, I should say, they all come from Ugarit of the late Bronze Age. So we're talking about 1,500 BC. So basically 3,500 years ago.
Yes.
From what we know of these texts, you got to remember that it was the priestly literate class that were writing these down. So there's a lot of folk religion that isn't handed down this way. And we rely very heavily on these texts. These texts all concern how the city will live, and it concerns how leadership is handed from one king to another. They're concerned about the health of the line. So basically, you're dealing with theocracy. Okay, you have one main religion, the state and the countryside. Okay, and that's very different from what we have today. And in fact, most of us would absolutely balk at living in a theocracy, myself included.
Yes.
Basically, they had the ability to sacrifice a certain amount of cattle and sheep and goats and make these sacrifices in a very grand way. And none of us has the money or even sometimes the desire to do that. That's a very touchy subject for a lot of the people.
Yes,
animal
it
sacrifice
is.
there.
Yes.
It's a very touchy subject.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that has changed. I should say has changed forms. If I do that sort of thing, I will cook up a leg of lamb on the grill.
Yes.
You know, I go and get it from the butcher store. You know?
Yeah.
So that's very different. I don't live on a farm.
Yeah.
You know?
We don't really do those. Yeah. But you know what? I think that there is a taboo about that because there's a lot of. I mean, we have pets and all of that, and it's I think a kind of like almost like an American thing. More than anything else, I mean, I know that there are societies, that, pertain these things and all of that. But you know what? There's other things about this that really, some religions still today do it. And we have to understand that, and we have to, obviously, these animals that are sacrificed are eaten afterwards.
Right.
So
Right.
and they are the people who kill them know how to kill animals. I mean, we've been killed animals for thousands of years. You know what I mean?
They go out of it not to torture them. The idea is not torture.
Yes, absolutely. So it's a different kind of. Notion that people think, well, they're stabbing animals. You know what I mean?
Like,
so
wait a minute,
it's
no.
really it's not really that.
Here's how I look at it. It's a Christmas goose or an Easter ham, for crying out loud.
Exactly. Well, in my culture, and I know that they do this still. In the United States, actually, but in my culture, in the Portuguese culture, they did they call it a day in the year that they would kill a pig, a whole pig. They will nourish the pig during the year, and then just before winter they will kill it because they had to have all the parts of the pig, including the famous chorizo and all of that. So all of those things and the meat and all of that, and it was kind of a community kind of thing. The man will cut and the meat from the pig, and the woman will wash the intestines and put the chorizo in and make the chorizo, and all of those things. people have to understand that they were done in a very nice way, because nobody wants to hurt animals, obviously not.
No.
But I'm just saying that this is something that actually happened. We can't be, we can't be we can't bleach this. I mean, this is something that it was there at some point. Obviously, we don't do it anymore.
Right.
But it has to be understood at something, But I know that some people just kind of like go like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But it was what it was. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, I do. And that's how they would have done it back in ancient times.
Yes.
There's the word dabhu, which means sacrifice, but it also implies the feast that follows.
Yes.
So these, the livestock typically wasn't just casually murdered and thrown aside.
Yes.
This nourished people, and a lot of times it was a good livestock practice to call the males of the herd so there weren't too many, or call the old,
Yes.
And this was just one way of doing it. They didn't necessarily use the old for the sacrifice. They wanted to use something better, obviously.
Yes.
But, if you have to do it anyway, this is one way where it will serve a purpose.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was not, everything, religion, people have to understand this. Religion was ingrained, it was part of life. Everything was part of life. So,
there's no separate word
there
for
is no,
exactly. In the Ugaritic language.
See?
There's no separate word.
Exactly.
None.
So
Nada.
Yes, yeah. So that's what it is. Now we have a question here on the chat room. It's very interesting.
Sure.
It says there is a conception that if the gods are forgotten and there are no prayers or offerings to them, they fade into nothingness. What do you think?
Right. I don't think they fade into nothingness. However, I do think they are made stronger with prayers and offerings.
Yes. Yeah.
If that makes sense to you, they are made stronger.
Yes. Yeah. Now,
and
what
that
about
is, through my years of making offerings and praises?
Yes.
That is what I have felt.
Now, what I think that the Natib Qadish is very close to or focused on primarily deities and deity worship. And that's very interesting because there is a very, very very strong, and that's kind of like come from what you were seeking, that was lacking in your previously, but still, it's a very interesting thing. Now, how do you have magic? Do you do magic? Do you do spells? Do you do all of those things that people normally? You just said that there is this the Ugarit, texts that you got were really kind of like a high priesthood kind of thing. So it was not really something that you didn't got all of that, kind of daily thing that you would have normally. In other cultures, that kind of how do you cure a fever, or how do you do those little cunning things that you would do. So, but do you have those things still? Do you have any kind of magic or any kind of spells?
Absolutely. The high priest that wrote, and their scribes who were practicing also, they left us a good deal of information on that. There are, I recall one particular spell or incantation which calls upon the Rapioma, who are the shades of the deceased.
Yes.
And it calls on the god Khoran, who is he's a god of magic, but a god of magic in exorcism, if that makes sense, in cleansing and clearing. And he works more with curses, especially to ensure treaties. So curses aren't always bad in Canaanite magic.
Yes.
There are very specific reasons for doing them.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Basically, this particular incantation calls upon the shape of the dead, the Rapioma, and the god Khoran, and it calls for using a skin bottle. So basically a bottle of leather is how I interpret that.
Yes.
Fill it with myrrh and lose the ailing child's room, and then you remove it after a certain point of time. There's also an admonition not to allow dog or fish in the household.
Oh, wow.
So
that's very interesting. That's very interesting. Now, what about, I mean, people, this is a completely different path. I mean, this is not completely different. It has probably some similarities to some of the indigenous, more indigenous, not, away from the neo-paganism kind of practices and eclectic practices. This is kind of specific for the culture, for that particular culture. Every practice, I believe, that we do in religion, religion, I think that the Natib Qadish is actually what I would call the religion, or a religion, because it's really based on our interaction with divinity, and that particular connection. And it's religion is that's the definition out of the Latin word is religare, and that's what it is. But the thing is that I feel that all of this is the things that you're telling me, and for what I read, it's actually very obvious. You can have a sense of the culture and the way of thinking and the way of looking at life and death and all of that. It's just a reflection. It's almost a mirror of that particular culture. And that happens in things that we have today that we rescued, and that they were really well rescued. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is nothing lacking. Everything is tempered, everything is there, everything is taken in consideration. And it's really, really very interesting. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Now, a few people know that, the Christianity and Judaism, it's, and you talk about this in your, in Anointed, also in your chapter, that Judaism and Christianity is a blend of a series of other religions, Canaanite, Babylonian, and Egyptian. Yeah. There's a lot of things. Now, how difficult was it to actually reconstruct this path? I mean, in terms of ritual, because I know that we never see it. I mean, we never saw it, right? We never saw it done.
Right.
There's descriptions, probably.
Get me the time machine, and let's go back and have a picnic back in the Bronze Age.
Let's just go.
I'll call your people. You call my people.
Exactly. And we just go. So how is this? Right. I mean, there is Kaisar Serif is another author, and he's an expert in Indo-European religions and all of the movements of people that came, and he says there are things that we compare. There are actually sometimes influences there are nowadays in some religions that we kind of take that and kind of put pieces together and do it. Did you do this, or was it there already in the texts?
A large part of it was already there.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's a very good thing.
Occasionally I did look to Judaism or Mesopotamian, but a large part of it is already there.
That's
elements such as cleansing, anointing with olive oil, or washing of the hands prior to ritual. That's there. It may differ in exactly how we execute those activities, but the activities themselves, they are listed right there.
Well, and I believe in the restitution of these religions and the practices and all. We have to really kind of rely on being inspired, right? On letting letting deity tell us, what should I do? How is it done? And oftentimes
letting the right book fall into our workspace.
Yes, yes.
And that happens.
yes. So it's very, very easy to sometimes to kind of, people think, well, how do they know? Well, they know because sometimes, obviously people rely on texts of the time, but also on, on inspiration, on being inspired by divinity. And that's what, sometimes happens. So in this text that you have on Anointed, I mean, there's a lot of text on Anointed, but I'm focused on yours because it's wonderful and it really goes through all of this. One of the things that I wanted to ask you is about the goddess, well, it's related to Astarte, but it's not really Astarte. It's Astartu, right? Astarte, yes. And, you say that it's the goddess of justice, balance, fairness, and treaties. I have a chant on one of my CDs that I dedicated to her, without even knowing her. Oh. Without, I just...
How lovely.
It's just, it's there, and it's just what it is. And I did it, and when I did it, I just let it happen. And it was very interesting to see the reaction of people. I just show them the music, and they automatically say what it is. They might not know the name, but they do know, okay, this is like, a very, kind of like a very hot country. This is, coming from, some... So it's really atmospheric, and I really love for you to listen to it. It would be great. So you have mentioned a lot of texts here, but I would love to see...
Yeah, but before you go any further...
Yeah, go ahead.
You're originally from Portugal, correct?
Yes, I am. Mm-hmm. I am.
Okay. Here's the connection. The Canaanites, by about the Iron Age, pretty much broke into two separate daughter cultures. Mm-hmm. You have the Israelites in the south of Canaan, and you have the Phoenicians along the coast.
Oh, I know.
Well, the Phoenicians everywhere, and I know you know. So you have a very tangible connection there to Canaanite culture.
Yeah, it is. And I know that my family is descended from them. I really do. I know that from my father's side. Directly, which is kind of like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, because they were in a coast, so everything was in the coast, so it's basically, it's very interesting to see, how far back are you going, you know what I mean? So, it's very interesting.
Well, and there's another thing there. Do you have to have ancestry to practice it?
That's another question.
And the answer
exactly.
is no.
Of course not.
No.
Of course not.
No,
I mean, you might have.
I mean,
you might have a little bit, and sometimes people have ancestry and they don't have connection at all.
Or they have ancestry and they may not even know it.
Yes. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like you don't. It doesn't really matter sometimes because the soul is eternal. Yeah. So travel, and sometimes it doesn't really kind of like go that way. You have a lot of texts that you say, these are the sacred texts that we have in this particular religion, and this particular culture, and it's the Ugarit. You said it's the Ugarit, and they were discovered in 1929,
right? And
in the city of Ugarit.
Well, actually, they were discovered in 1928. The texts themselves were uncovered in 1929.
Oh, okay, and And it's very interesting because, there's a lot of texts and you just go through them and all of that, and it's absolutely amazing because you just don't, sometimes people hide these things. I don't know why, but they do.
Well, sure they do.
It's just, let's just hide everything.
I mean, it overthrows the whole center of the Christian and Jewish universe to just have this out there,
Yeah.
The whole idea that Elohim is plural. Oh my goodness gracious!
That's another thing.
What do we do now?
What do we do now? And then they just put it on the ground, and that's it. about it, don't do anything. I mean, it's amazing. I just heard today, I just saw a video of a priest, a Catholic priest, Roman Catholic priest, and he says he has this theory that the Fatima phenomenon in Portugal, it's a hoax. And I don't know, he probably will be dead in the next few weeks, but he just voices this, the three little kids that, the lady just appears to them, and there's this center, it's huge, with thousands and thousands of people. In the 13th of May, they go there, and it's this whole story, and he says this is a hoax from the church. I mean, it's kind of a power kind of thing to the masses, but it's very interesting. So, but the point that I wanted to go for is that how would you describe a ceremony, a ritual that you would do in the Canaanite religion? How would you describe it? What were the parts? I mean, you already said about purification, all of that, but how would you describe the layout of it so that we can have an idea how it is?
Well, sure. I can walk you through what I do on Friday evenings, if you like.
Yes, that would be great.
It's not a grand ceremony. It's a very small devotional ceremony. Yeah. Tell you what, I'm going to walk over to my altar and then describe it to you. How's that work for you?
That's very good. Very good.
Why not? Huh?
Yes.
So basically, I like to take a day off on Saturdays. Just a day off, just moving back away from the world just a little bit, and just take a day of rest.
Yes.
So I start that on Friday nights. Granted, this is kind of borrowed from Jewish culture because the Canaanites probably wouldn't have done this. Mm-hmm. If they took days of rest, they took on new moons and on full moons, specifically. But, I changed it for myself onto Fridays because it's a little easier with trying to integrate with our culture nowadays.
Yes.
But before me, I have a very low table. And on that table, I have an altar cloth that I picked up at a Persian store. Mm-hmm. And it's got little decorative floral hands of Fatima on there. I call them kaku. Mm-hmm. So the symbol of the palm. And I've got a Canaanite-style oil lamp, which is basically a round piece of clay that's been pinched at one end. Mm-hmm. And it forms a dish with a pinch so that you can lay in the pinch part, and you can pour olive oil into the saucer part.
Yes.
And I've got an incense holder in the shape of a palm. I've got a plate for offerings. I've got a large brass bell. And I've got a small cabinet. And in the cabinet, I have my deity images. And some of those I've been able to buy, some of those I've made, and some of those are photographs printed off the internet. Yes. This isn't a very common path, so
you don't have
common religion.
Yes.
So,
yes.
We have to do what we can.
Yes.
So on Friday evening about sunset, I will wash my hands. I will come to my altar. I have a little saucer and actually an obsidian dish with olive oil in it, scented with marjoram and myrrh. And some people think marjoram was the hyssop of old times, so mm-hmm. that's what I use, marjoram and myrrh, and a little pinch of salt. And I will anoint myself with my right hand using my ring finger and my pinky finger, and I will make a shallow U shape on my forehead, which symbolizes the crescent moon, mm-hmm. and a dot right above that for a solar disk. Mm-hmm. And then I come before my altar, because I have a little rug that denotes what is sacred space from the rest of the room. Mm-hmm. So I approach my altar, I knock on the door of the cabinet, because mm-hmm. I like to let the deities know that I'm coming. Mm-hmm. And then I open the doors, and I bow 7 times to the deities. And I give them thanks for a good week, and I wish them strength and well-being, and I ask them for a good week coming up, and I also pray for the well-being of our community. And then I will light some incense, and I will light my oil lamp, and I will ring my brass bell 7 times. And then I back away from my altar, making sure that I do not turn my back on the deities.
Yes.
And that altar stays, the cabinet doors stay open so long as I have a candle flame or incense going. And if I have to leave the house for some reason, I will usually play some classical music or leave a light on for them.
Yes.
So that the altar is never cold.
That's very
and
beautiful.
That's the idea behind.
That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Now, tell me, is this lantern on the anointed yours? The cover?
No, it's not. But if you flip to the inside, there's a page on there. Actually, wait a minute. Are you looking at the back of the book? Because it is on the back of the book.
No. It's on the front of the book.
No, there's another oil lamp on the back.
Oh, I don't have the back. I only have the cover. I only have the cover of the book. So, yeah, but I do. Well, you know that one of the...
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on. I've got it on my electronic version of the book. If you scroll down, the first photograph in there will show you my oil lamp.
Oh, okay.
And it's a little bit different from that one. It's a lot plainer. It's basically just a shallow dish with a pinch in it.
Oh, I see. Okay, yes. Okay.
That's actually my hand, too.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting.
And my friend Tom taking the picture. So, yeah, kudos to Tom.
That's very good. Now, one of the things that we don't have, it's lamps. I wanted to use them for, I have like an affinity also with the Greeks, and I wanted to get that, but it's very, very difficult to get.
Oh, honey, have I got the website for you.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
Yes,
That's
I
good.
do. If you can wade through, if you're okay, if you're comfortable with Christianity,
yes.
You're okay with Christ, then you can go through this particular website and buy lamps just like the one on the cover, either cover, front or back, or the insert.
Well, I have found them.
Victory Inc.
I have found
VICTORIEINC.com.
Inc. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
.com. Okay. I have found two, and they're Christian. I mean, they're not Christian, but they're replicas of. One of them is a Byzantine kind of, very big kind of lamp. Beautiful. It works, and the other one, it's a little one, and it has like a little shape on it. But it's all of them, Jerusalem, and they're kind of curiosities or whatever. For all the places in the world, I got this in Providence, Massachusetts. Go figure.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
I know. And I've searched for them for so long, and finally I got it. So it's really, really good. I really like it.
They have a ton of them on this string. There's got to be 10 of them, 10 different kinds from different eras.
Yeah. I just love it. Now, you have to talk a little bit about divination, because that's one of the things that we didn't talk yet, and it's one of the things that I think that it's present in most of the polytheistic, religions. You have the famous Greek oracles, and you have also the Romans had it, also, and you do have it in the Canaanite religion, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's one way of knowing what the deities wish.
Yes.
There are different kinds. The ones that we know the most about are ironically not ones we typically practice today. They have to do with observing malformed animal fetuses. You're not going to run into that today unless you're watching Animal Planet or you work at a zoo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
There are also liver and lung models, which detail different parts and different characteristics of livers and lungs that will tell of different omens.
Mm-hmm.
There's also an ancient text about lunar omens, and that one's really interesting. There are a lot of they're basically written in if-then statements, and sometimes the ifs are preserved and the thens are not, or vice versa.
Yeah.
You're dealing with 3,500-year-old tablets, so
yes.
Over time, the writing is going to get rubbed off, even if it's stamped in the clay.
Yeah.
And sometimes fragments get broken off.
Yeah.
But there are two very clear omens that come to us from those tablets, and that is that a red full moon symbolizes abundance,
mm-hmm.
and a yellow-green full moon symbolizes strife and scarcity. And if you look at it, sure, that is divination, but that's also a meteorological phenomenon.
Yes. Yes.
It just goes to show you the blending of science and magic back then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They were
it's
the
amazing.
same thing. In fact, one of the deities of magic is also the god of technology, Qadish.
Yes.
Whose name means deft and skillful. But, because if you think about it, a red moon, well, you hear that red sky at night, sailor's delight.
Yes.
There's the idea that the moon is red, and it has to do with a scientifically explainable phenomenon, which causes, some sort of refraction with the moisture in the air.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
However, I've seen it to be true. A red moon does mean abundance.
It's absolutely amazing.
Red moon, buy a lotto ticket, quick.
Now, one of the things that
I've noticed the yellow-green moon does mean trouble.
Yes,
I've had that happen too.
That's very interesting, and it's very interesting to know. I mean, I want to know if you know anything like possession. By the priestess or by the, do we know how was the priesthood on the ancient Canaanite religion? What was it? Just, were priestesses and priests? Were just, more priestesses, less priests, different?
The thing. We have no information that there were even priestesses in Ugarit. We know there were priests, but we don't know about priestesses. Oh. There is some suggestion that the king's mother would have served in a cultic role of some sort, so possibly as some sort of priestess. Mm-hmm. But other than that, we're just not sure, and we're not even sure of that.
Okay.
We know from Mesopotamian culture that there are different priestess roles.
Yes.
But we don't have that information to us in Ugarit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, what about in divination? Possession, like talking.
Right.
Yeah, like being possessed by deity and then talk. I mean, we know that this is present in many cultures.
Right.
Do we have this? Do we have any report of that?
Not in the texts themselves.
Okay.
It is possible that it could have happened
in
the folk religion, which wasn't written down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But other than that, we don't know about deity possession.
Okay.
As far as priestly roles.
Okay.
However, they would consult the deities. They would look for omens and that sort of thing. It wouldn't surprise me if they did have instances of that. It just wasn't written down. Now, there is some kind of ritual of contemplation that the king is said to engage in.
Oh.
And he goes into a meditative state where he glances upon, it's all the text says is that he looks upon an image of a deity. So beyond that, we're not really sure what happened.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he gazes upon a deity statue, and I guess he looked for his answer there. However, there is a more direct conversation, if you will, with the deities in the dream state. Dream work is very important to them.
That's very interesting.
That is how you would receive your conversations with the deities. That's how you would know. There's an ancient tale where one of the kings, one of the legendary kings, went into this 7-day ritual where he pleaded with the deities for help because he had lost his sons, and he had gotten married and had lost all his wives.
Yes.
And thus he had no heir. He had no heir to the throne. He had no one to take care of him when he was old, and he felt completely in the dark. So he weeps and asks the deities for assistance, and they visit him in a dream. And that's where they give him his advice.
Now,
to go look for a wife in a neighboring kingdom and all of that.
I'm going to tell you a story also, which is very interesting because this has a correlation. There is an Iberian god of healing, and his name is Endovalicus, and he is, obviously this name is Romanized, right? But he is the god of health, of wealth, and cures, or, you would go there if you had a problem of health. And it's very interesting because all of the method that they would have on how to contact the god would be, you would have to stay in the temple, you would have to sleep in the temple, and he will talk to you in the dreams. Now it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah. Actually, we have a priestess of Endovalicus in the chat room, and she's just, kind of like,
Oh, that's great.
It's really good, and it just to see how it all connects. I mean, it's very interesting how things coming and going and influences, and it's absolutely amazing. Now, tell me about festivals. I know that you have special days. I know there's a chat room question about what is the significance of the new/full moons, and why they take their rest on those days specifically?
Oh, sure. We don't know for sure that they would have.
Okay.
However, the new moon marks the very beginning of the month, so it was like a day zero. It was a liminal time.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start to see the very first crescent, that's day one of the month. So they had, we do know from text that they had lesser offerings that they would make on the new moon. And going on to the full moon is when they would have more offerings. So the bulk of the offerings each month were made on the full moon. And regardless of whether or not there was a holiday or any prescribed ritual going on, they would always do these new moon and full moon type off.
Yeah.
So,
now, tell me one thing about the festivals on the sacred days. Sacred days of festivals of festivities. In Wicca we have the 8 Sabbaths, and I'm sure that you will have something similar. Obviously, it's not and will not be the same, but because people, I find it very interesting. I find it very. I know, but I find it very interesting that some people come up with this reinventing these religions, right? And they come up with these things, and then you see they have 8 Sabbaths, and I'm thinking, I don't think that you would in Egypt. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? So
if you happen to have 8 holidays,
yeah, it would not be corresponded to. Yeah. So
right.
Yeah. So
like,
tell
wait a minute.
Yes. So tell me about yours, and what are the most important ones, and what would you celebrate on those?
Well, sure. We start out with Ashuru Mafatu, and Ashuru basically means feast, celebration, offering. And that is during the new moon of the lunar month that holds the autumnal equinox in it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, did you follow all of that?
Yes.
So you basically look for the lunar month that has equinox in it, and you go
Yes.
to the new moon.
Yes.
So during that time of the year, we celebrate the end of the fruit harvest.
Mm-hmm.
What we have written in the text concerns not the fruit harvest, because here's the interesting part. What they tended to write about as far as the celebrations had not so much to do with what was going on in the seasonal calendar. It's there, but it's a background, if
Yes.
that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times these are basically priestly crib notes.
Mm.
So
That's very
it's like
interesting.
reading the crib notes for Shakespeare without being able to read Shakespeare.
Yes, yes.
I mean, you think about it, how much in our culture do we just do without even thinking about it? How many people write about turning on a light switch?
Well, this is a culture, nowadays we live in a society of do. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no question whatsoever, we don't even think about it. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because,
Yeah.
you know, basically you're driven by doing, and then suddenly we'll do something wrong, you know, and you don't even think about it. So yeah, I know, and
Exactly.
I always like to know, Tess, why am I doing things?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Motivation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Or
what
especially
Mm-hmm.
in ritual, you know. And what it will be the reaction of what I'm doing right now. Do I really want that reaction to happen? Do I really want that, that to happen? And what are the consequences of that? You know what I mean? So I'm very, very careful. Yeah, very careful
and
about
the mindset, too.
Yes.
At least with Canaanite ritual, you want to go in with the purpose of your ritual to be to honor the deities.
Yes.
If you go in with a different purpose, it will be wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
I know that sounds kind of cold, but that's just my growing experience, because I have done ritual without having that intent. I have done ritual with the idea of, okay, I'll do this ritual so that I can show other people how to do it. Okay, but my primary motivation was shifted right there from the deity to teaching. And it's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that. Because there's very much the idea in Canaanite thought that you can do something wrong in ritual. So you want to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Granted, they're very forgiving, thank goodness. But you do have to think about what you're doing. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. 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 Now,
you wanted to go back to the holidays, right?
Yes, please. Yes. That's what I was asking you for. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sure. Ashuru Masbati, basically in ancient times, 4 booths, 4 temporary dwellings, actually 2 sets of 4, so a total of 8 temporary dwellings, were set up on the rooftop of either the temple or the palace.
Mm-hmm.
And the deity images were brought into these. Now, it doesn't really say why. My suspicion is that they may have done some kind of cleaning at the temple at that point in time, and they wanted a temporary place for the deity statues. That's my guess.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do for Ashuru Masbati is we build either a dwelling outside, or what I typically do is do a tabletop-sized dwelling.
Mm-hmm.
And this can be out of a basket, like a square basket turned on its side, or a crate.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll house my deity statues in there for a while. And I'll decorate it with garlands, and I'll put offerings in front. And it's basically at this festival, the king would raise his hands towards the heavens and speak what is in his heart. when he does this, you have to remember that the heart wasn't the seat of emotion for these people. The heart was where you think. The heart was the mind.
Mm-hmm.
The liver is where you feel your emotion.
That's very interesting, actually.
Yeah, and it actually, I was reading about that in Canaanite text, and I was talking with a friend of mine who's Kemetic, and she studies Egyptian religion, and she says, that makes perfect sense, because that's how they thought in Egypt.
Yes. Well, and if you think that liquid, the liquid is, or the blood is, the heart is a lot of liquid, but it's a passage liquid. The liver retains it. It's more dense, and it's a purifying kind of organ. So it's very interesting to think about that.
Right, and if your liver is off, you're going to be off.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah. Now
I have heard someone actually say before, "Oh, I guess your liver's acting up," and I went, "Oh, Canaanite, oh," because I'm just geeky like that. Okay.
Yeah. That's true. Now, you do that, and then so these are the two most important.
Mafati is one of the most important. It symbolizes the new year.
Yes.
I have to say from my own experience that Ashani is probably the second most important, and that is on or around the ancient texts.
Okay.
There was talk in the ancient text of going on a fast and possibly written food stuff from the. There are a lot of my friends who are Jewish who say, hey, they were removing leavened bread. They might very well have. We don't know. We don't know for sure. But it is about the same time as Passover for
the Jewish tradition.
Religion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And is it a purification kind of thing? Probably.
They didn't typically write about their motivations.
Oh,
unfortunately.
Okay. So we don't know. But it sounds like
we don't know for sure. Yeah. It does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. And at the very end, they do some sort of libation of fish soup in the palace courtyard.
Oh. That's very interesting.
Right. So what I like to do is make a fish soup, and I like to put barley in it because this is about the time of the barley harvest.
Yes.
You have two basic agricultural seasons in Canaan. You've got the grain season and you've got the fruit season. And the grain season goes from about now till about early spring. And then you have the fruit season, which the fruit is just beginning to bud right about now and will come into, well, actually, the fruit will have been harvested by now. Mm-hmm. So basically you've got your grain growing in the winter and spring, and you've got your fruit in the summer and fall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's very interesting.
Well, it makes a lot of sense if you think about it. There's a lot of people who kind of balk at the idea of having a agricultural season during the time of winter because it's alien to a lot of people in Western culture.
That's true.
If you're used to seeing a bunch of snow all around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There are places in the Midwest and in the inland Northwest, I know, that do winter grain crops.
Mm-hmm.
And they will see the crops in the winter, well, actually about now, so late fall, while the ground's not frozen. Mm-hmm. And those crops will spring up by the time the spring comes.
That's very
and then they'll have an extra crop, and they'll, gather in the grain at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To honor the barley harvest, I like to put barley in my fish soup. So.
That's very interesting because Bishop, from my father's side of the family, the ultimate dish is fish soup.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They're just experts on it. And it's so easy to do that it's kind of almost like it's so easy, and
it's underestimated.
I know
You
it is.
Wrong.
Yeah, I know.
Wrong.
But this is the thing. I think it's on the time of boiling. That's the secret, and the way you lay things on the thing in the pan.
Right.
You know what I mean? The layers kind of thing. Yeah. I think that's.
Sometimes you cook the fish separately.
Yes.
And then put it on closer toward the end, so it doesn't go all over the place.
Yes. Yeah. That's the
But
thing.
I know there's a Moroccan tradition, too, a Moroccan Jewish tradition of having fish at this time. And I can't help but think that it might have gone back to Canaanite time.
Canaanite, yeah.
In some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Now, another thing that I wanted to ask you is how do you do this? I mean, you're in America. You're not really in the land of, what it was.
Right.
You know what I mean? So people might think, why are you worshiping, gods from, another land in your land?
Because
I mean,
hit me on the head with a frying pan.
and the other question is, can you do it? I mean, do you need any special things? Do you need a piece of the land from there? Do you need any kind of rocks that come from, you know what I mean? Do you need any connection with the land, or you can just go ahead and worship? Is that important?
Personal experience, you can just go ahead and worship.
Mm-hmm.
You can honor the deities anytime, any place, anywhere.
Yeah.
And they won't.
They won't
that's
be.
Really, all you need.
They won't be angry with you. So another thing is that I've heard that
they might, but you'll have to deal with the consequences.
Yes.
And that's part of it.
Yeah. Well, in the Iberian tradition, and we're going to talk about this on Monday. It's very interesting because you have to have at least a piece of rock if you want to worship any god or goddess from that, particular tradition. And it's very interesting because, people say that, but you have to have that connection. So it's kind of a little bit different.
Right.
But it's very interesting because, as long as you have that, that's fine.
That's beautiful. It really is.
And the other thing
I haven't had that experience.
No.
But there are times when I am keyed into that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had an experience a few months ago, and this religion is just beginning to pick up pace. This Canaanite religion. And we're actually starting to see people in the Near East who are beginning to honor these deities once more.
Wow. I wonder how it would be.
Quietly.
You know what I mean? You going there, doing, a ritual.
Oh man, I would love to.
This is. It's kind of like
to be very careful.
I know, because it would be kind of like, okay, they come and they talk to you and they will respond and everything. And I'm thinking, if you go there, it would be like, bam. It's like here, right now. I didn't even,
I had this strange experience one day where I was just sitting down doing my work, and I felt very touchy on one side of my body, just very, like someone tugging on me, like, hey! I'm like, no, go away, whatever. So I keep on working. Hey! Okay, fine. So I meditate. And I basically encounter this particular deity. He's a later deity than what I usually work with. He's more in Phoenician times, the god Eshmun. And I basically had a communique from him that said, remember me.
I want to be worshipped. Yeah.
Bring me an offering. Do something. I'm a god of health, and I really need help here.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's okay. All right, red flowers, got it, peachy. Okay. So I talked to one of my friends who happens to be in that area of the world. And I said, okay, this is going to sound really weird, but is there some kind of ruined temple of Eshmun out there? Yes. Okay. Do you have any plans on going there soon? Yes, this Sunday. Really? Well, here's what I want you to do. If you would be so kind as to bring some flowers,
yes,
lead flowers specifically,
yes.
I think that would work really well.
Yes.
And sure enough, he did.
Amazing.
And I thought that was so strange that it just happened to coincide with the time when there was going to be someone out there visiting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's they hear what they know.
Absolutely.
They know, and they would be worshipped. I mean, it's and there's
it's a symbiotic relationship.
Absolutely. I'm talking about magic and spells and everything, and remedies and recipes. There is something that I want to ask you about, a hair of a dog that was used.
Hair of the dog goes back to Canaan. Do you believe it?
Yes. It's amazing. Isn't that amazing? Hair of the dog, used as a remedy for drunkenness in Canaanite times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What happens is the god Ilu, head of the pantheon, he likes to imbibe a little bit every now and then.
Oh.
And one day, at his own Marzichu, which is a feasting, drinking gathering, he imbibes a little too much. And he's struggling to get home. He's slipping and falling and having a really rough time getting home. And basically one of his children acts as the beer scooter and gets him back home. You know the tales of the legendary beer scooter, right?
Yes. Yeah.
How they fleece you for cash, they get you home and leave you with nothing else,
Yes, yeah.
But you somehow magically get home and you don't remember it?
Yes.
Yeah, well, one of his children acted as the beer scooter, got him home, and he happened to end up having a severe hangover. So he sends the two goddesses, Astarte and Anat. He sends them out to look for a cure, and they come back to him with, there's an untranslatable shoot of a plant. And I wish I could translate it, but I can't. And they use the juice from that shoot, they mix it with olive oil, and I don't know if they apply it to his forehead or have him drink it, or maybe both. But they also place hairs of a dog on El's forehead as part of the cure.
That's very interesting. Why a hair of a dog? I mean, does the dog have any significant... you know what I mean?
Right, and it's a very curious tale. All I can tell you is there's Yariku, which is the moon god. Yes, we have a moon god, not a moon goddess.
Yes.
He shows up at the Marzichu, and he is described as crawling on the ground on all fours underneath the table like a dog and asking for scraps. And Astartu and to give him the scraps, and Ilu's servant basically gets very angry at the two young goddesses and says, hey, don't do that. He shouldn't be doing that. Cut it out.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the only connection I can see, is that it was somehow related to how the moon god was acting at that particular event.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. Now,
there's
I want...
also another...
Go ahead.
If you're curious, there's another cure for impotency or for an STD, and that was to make certain offerings to the Lady of Spirit, to ask Horon to cleanse it out of the system, because remember, Horon is the god of exorcism.
Yes.
And to drink fig juice and eat moldy or stale bread.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When you
Which
think
is
about
very
it,
interesting. We think about it. Yeah, yeah.
The fig juice is cleansing. It's got minerals in it. It's got vitamins in it. It's got a little bit of fiber in it. So if there's something wrong in your body, that will help cleanse.
Yes.
And the moldy bread is probably penicillin.
Absolutely. That's what I was thinking about.
There you go.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that I wanted to ask you is the palm symbol. And it's a very interesting symbol, and we see it a lot. You have a cover of one of your books. It's, the palm. So what is the palm, and what is the significance of that symbol? What does it represent, and all of that?
Sure. In Canaanite iconography, you'll see statues of the deities or stelae of the deities carved, their images carved into, on bas-relief onto a stone. They will be seated, and they will be holding up their palm. And sometimes the other the other hand has a cup in it. So they'll be showing one open palm and sometimes have the other one holding a cup.
Oh.
Basically, the open palm is a symbol of blessing, and the cup is a symbol of abundance. So as they are seated in this pose, they are blessing the viewer with abundance and well-being. And in later times, in the Iron Age, over at Herbet El Kom, down south, there's a symbol of a palm carved into a rock, and it's a very crude palm. But basically, the inscription under it reads, "May you be protected by Ilu and his Asherah." So it's used as a protective symbol there.
That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. I just love that. I really do. And I've seen this symbol a lot. Sometimes you do see it. But it's just an amazing thing, because it's kind of like, it can't be so, how can I say, so enigmatic that you think, oh, it's very difficult, and it's very kind of intricate, and it's very complicated. It's actually not. It's just a blessing symbol.
No. It's a blessing. It's a blessing, and it's protective.
Yes. Yeah. So I just wanted to let me here if I can show. Let me see here. If I can show people your website. You have a website. It's called Canaanite Path, and that's CANAANITEPATH.com. And let me just show the people the website, because I think that it's an important website. Let's see if we can see it a little bit. Oh, we have something here on the way. So this is your website. It has a lot of information here. People, if you don't have Tess books, you should buy it, first of all. And then, second of all, please read the website, because the website has a lot of information on it. Now, you do have 2 books, Whisper of the Stone, Natib Qadish, Modern Canaanite Religion, which is basically an overview of the whole religion, and Anointed, a devotional anthology of deities of the Near and Middle East, which is, an anthology of a lot of authors, including yourself. But you do have a lot of information on this website.
Absolutely.
A lot of things.
And it's footnoted. And I do try to footnote wherever possible, so that you know what I get from where.
Yes.
I figure that's only fair.
Absolutely. And here we have the palm. It's very interesting, and you have a lot of things. I mean, I love the way you named, the parts of your website. And
if you scroll on the buttons, it'll show up in cuneiform.
Oh, it's very interesting. Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I'm seeing...
Some of them I had to transliterate, but some of them are translations.
One of the things that I'm seeing here is I'm seeing here something very interesting, because it's prayers and blessings, which is very interesting.
Right.
And do we know how this is vocalized?
What they do is scholars will compare it to Akkadian, which is what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. It's a Semitic language. The thing is with Akkadian, they wrote down the vowel sounds in combination with the consonants, which is the reason why they're cuneiform 300. So sometimes they would write an Ugaritic text in Ugaritic and compare the two. So you can compare the two. There's also a certain amount of comparative studies with other later Semitic languages, Hebrew, Aramaic, that sort of thing. It's tentative, yes, but it's based on sound practices.
Yes.
If that makes sense. That makes sense.
It's absolutely amazing. I'm showing it, and I'm showing also now a little plaque of a Tirat or a Shera, and the Queen of the Pantheon, and it's just beautiful. I love this plaque, by the way. Was it made by you? No.
No, I wish it were. I actually picked it up in New Jersey, of all places. Oh, wait, not New Jersey. Not New Jersey. I take it back. Pennsylvania, New Hope, Pennsylvania. There we go.
Wow. Who knew?
Who knew?
I know. But it's so amazing. And then here you are. You have here Ilu, Il or El. Here we are. And then, so this is the pantheon. This is the whole pantheon, and it's very interesting because you know. Now, the other thing I want to ask you as we go along with your website is, how do you perceive afterlife in the Canaanite religion? Is there an underworld similar to the Sumerian and Greek beliefs, or how do we see it in that perspective?
There is an underworld. It's called the Bitu Husati, and it means house of freedom.
Oh,
how
beautiful!
And they're beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? My thought is with that name is freedom from your worldly cares.
Yeah. Yes.
There are some scholars that may disagree with me and go with more of a death is silent sort of thing that you see later on in Hebrew culture and in Mesopotamian culture. I think the Hebrews probably borrowed that from Mesopotamian culture.
Yes.
My thought is more of a place where you just reside. And carry out your life as a shade. In the afterlife. And you can be called upon to assist the living for matters of healing, for matters of guidance. However, if they don't provide you with offerings, if they don't remember your name, you're not necessarily obligated to help them out.
Oh,
and indeed, you may be too weak to help them out. There's definitely the idea that as you give offerings, so you strengthen to whom you're giving the offering.
Yes. Yeah. So it's very beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Do we have? We were talking with Indigo Astray about this in the beginning of the show, about ghosts and things like that. Do they perceive this? I mean, when we die, it's just we go to that place, or are there reports of people coming back in kind of a spectre way, or kind of in a ghostly kind of thing? Is there any kind of information about that?
Not in the Ugaritic text that I can recall off the top of my head. However, it wouldn't surprise me because you do find that in Mesopotamian culture, and you can find it elsewhere. So it would not surprise me that there's an idea of hungry ghost, as it were. The idea that ghosts who died, people who died too swiftly, people who died in terrible circumstances, and people who died who do not care for them. There's the idea that they can become angry.
Yes. Yeah, that's very interesting, actually. Now, I'm going through the library. You have the history. This is, the particular part of the world that this is all, where we are, the map of the ancient Near East, and when we're talking about, so you can see Arabia, Egypt here, Nubia there, and then you have Anatolia, Syria, and Syria right here, and then the Mediterranean Sea right there, and then you have Cyprus. So it's kind of, it's a very good website. It's absolutely amazing in terms of, it's wonderful in terms of information. You have a lot here. Now, if I wanted to follow obviously this religion, if I have an affinity with it, obviously I have to, just read as much as I can, especially the synopsises of the ancient stories or the texts. I mean, the ancient texts,
right?
So that you can actually have
several different translations of those.
Yeah, and you can actually do that and be a little bit more informed about what it is and how it works. And what the thing is that these texts are absolutely necessary to understand what you should do and where all this information comes from. But Tess puts together this wonderful website. Not only your books, but the website is very important also, because you have a lot of information here that can set you up just for the beginning of things. Now, do you, I don't know, I'm just looking at it, I don't know if you have rituals here. You don't have rituals here, right? You do?
I have basically ritual outlines there.
You do, yes. I think so.
The website. I have the rituals in Whisper of Stone. I have some suggested rituals that you can try.
Oh, there's this very controversial kind of thing that I'm kind of looking at. Are sexual rights part of Natib Qadish? No.
You'd be surprised how many times I get wink, wink, nudge,
really?
nudge. Oh, you're Canaanite. Let's go. I'm like,
oh my God, really? Oh, please.
Yes.
Oh,
yes, I had one guy actually trying to come on to me by saying, oh, he performs skyclad. I'm like, good for you. They don't like that. If you're performing skyclad, they think you're destitute.
Oh, really? That's
Seriously.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Wow.
There is one tale where one of the kings is trying to implore the deities to help him out on his behalf. And when he does this, he either goes naked or in very poor clothing.
Oh, wow.
So if you go before the deities in something other than your best dress, you're basically saying, please help me, I'm destitute. I'm desperate. Wow. I need help.
That's very interesting.
So it's not something that, it has a very different meaning in Canaanite ritual than it does in Wicca.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, absolutely. And it's a different thing. I mean, it's a cultural thing. We have to know that this is not what Wicca is. I mean, it has nothing to do, it's a complete different, it's an indigenous, very, very specific religion that has and reflects, very intensely the people and how the people thought and the society and all of that and the way of living in those days, and the soul of that culture. It's reflected by the religion. Now, the other thing is animal sacrifice, which is something that we already talked about, and for some reason, people think that anything that has to do with the Near East or anything from that region of the world, we all worship Lilith, which is very interesting. Why do people think that?
I don't know. All I can say is Lilith has become a very popular figure in modern times as women's reclaiming our feminine power. But the actual origins of the supernatural entity known as Lilith are demonic. There's no getting around that. It comes from the Lilitu spirits in Sumer, and they were not entities that you really wanted to work with.
Yeah. Lamashtu.
Lamashtu the goddess. Yeah. She is not. She's also not in it. Not all the deities are there for our benefit.
One of the things that it really bothers me, Tess, and I don't know if it bothers you also, but this is bothering me for a long time, for many years. Why do we have to have all the gods and all the goddesses in all of the pantheons of paganism today, or neo-paganism, have to be cute and nice and wanted our good and our, why everything? I mean, obviously most of them do, but it's, not all of them.
I think a lot of people come from the idea of religion as self-help.
I know, I understand exactly, and that's, I think, the problem here.
It comes from.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And they're looking for a deity to do for them what they cannot or will not do for themselves.
And the other thing is, if you wear kind of a T-shirt of Morrigan, for instance, of the Morrigan, or a T-shirt of whatever, I like the Morrigan. I really do. I'm sorry. That's me. And I have a T-shirt with the Morrigan. I mean, it's a crow. It's beautiful. It's black and
crows are wonderful.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I have a family
and there was
outside
someone.
my
There
door.
was I know. And there was someone who actually said, "Oh, you have a T-shirt of the Morrigan?" And I said, "Yeah." "Oh, I wouldn't wear that." And I said, "Why?" "Well, because she's the goddess of death, and And I said, "Really, really." Just read a little bit more about Morrigan.
You do have to, at least from a Canaanite standpoint, you do have to be careful about the images of the deities and bringing in their image in certain ways. So I will say that.
So you wouldn't wear a T-shirt of Morrigan?
I'd wear a shirt with crows on it.
Yes. Yeah, it's crows. It's crows. It's kind of the crows, and it says Morrigan. But it's not really kind of like the Morrigan. I mean, it's a symbol of the goddess, obviously. But she's also a lot of things. But, there are some gods and some entities, like Lilith, for instance, that are not that nice, people. We have to get over it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
I get a lot of flack about that.
I know.
You would be amazed.
Oh, I know. Well, maybe we can just,
I can't call a demon at my ritual when my Canaanite predecessors actually warded against Lamashtu.
Yeah.
That's simply not going to happen.
Yeah. No. But, just because I'm wearing... There's someone here saying, using their image is bringing in their energy. Not necessarily. No. Not necessarily. Why? I mean, if you have the image, the image is just an image. It's nothing more than an image. It might symbolize something, but it has to be triggered at some point. If you have an image...
That's what the kings used. They used the images for worship.
Exactly, but the fact that you're worshipping it, that's when the image is triggered. Because until then, it's just a piece of clay or just a piece of drawing in a plaque. You know what I mean? When you begin to worship it, this is my perspective, then that becomes something else. So I'm not worshipping it when I'm using a T-shirt. You know what I mean?
There's a Canaanite idea of that which is Qadish, sacred. It also implies separate. Yeah. So I don't keep deity images around the house for home decor.
Yeah.
And if I'm not honoring the deities, I have their images in my little cabinet, and the cabinet is closed.
Yes. Yeah. So you really kind of not... You don't have, just for... I understand that. But what I'm saying is that I don't feel that that's a bad... I mean, I know that obviously you have a different perspective of it, but in that context. But I don't... For wearing my T-shirt, I don't think that I'm doing anything. I mean, I'm not invoking anything.
No.
You know what I mean? I'm not kind of inviting, But I don't...
You kind of are.
Yeah.
At the same time, you kind of are, because you're demonstrating your affinity with her.
That's true.
Saying, hey, look, I am a child of the Morrigan.
Yes. Well, I actually not. That's just an T-shirt. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Should we just kind of not use any images without... That's a very good question. Do we really have to... How do you... I mean, it's a T-shirt. I mean, you can trigger...
If you're using that symbol specifically for worship, in my own personal thoughts, I would keep that separate.
Absolutely.
However, if you typically use that particular symbol as not as a symbol of worship, but as a symbol of allegiance, then I don't think it's quite the same thing.
Yeah, not. Because if you have, for instance, I have this cloth that I use, that it's symbolic of an allegiance of a specific god. People, they don't know that's a symbol of that particular deity. They don't know, so they won't, you know. And I used it as kind of a, you know, I'm from this, you know what I mean? So I come from this, or I'm here.
Well,
because,
and sometimes,
you know,
the symbol is different from the image.
Yeah, yeah, which is
if that
different.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so
Right.
a crow, and any image of a crow would not necessarily be or represent the Morrigan, just as the goddess Morrigan. I mean, it can be.
However, if it were a T-shirt depicting the human-like visage of the Morrigan,
yeah,
or something very, very sacred and private and personal, yeah, I'd think twice about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but that's, you know, that's a different story. But the thing is that I think that there's a lot of things that we kind of have to be careful with. But also, I think that sometimes people are too aseptic. I mean, they're too kind of, they try to kind of make things all very good. And I mean, why would you dismiss the Morrigan just because it's a goddess of associated with death and the battlefield? You know, the Morrigan is necessary. You know, she takes the dead, you know, away, and there's a purpose for. I don't really, you know, I don't want it to be associated. Well,
it reminds me of the goddess Anatu.
Yeah.
And that particular goddess, she's a young goddess of warfare, but she's also very fiercely loyal. And there's a story. It's a wonderful story about how she goes out and smites all of Baal Hadad. I should say Baal Hadi or Baal Hadad, however you want to pronounce it. Both ways are technically correct depending on the language.
Yes.
She goes and smites Baal's enemies.
Yeah.
And she's still having this bloodlust pounding through her veins, and she's not done with the killing yet. So she goes back home, she lines up all her furniture, her tables, and her chairs, and proceeds to smite furniture.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
That's very wild.
Isn't that just wild? She
That's
just
very...
gets so blinded by this
that energy.
warrior bloodlust. She just has to spend it all in this way.
That's very interesting.
No, that's a goddess that you want to be very careful with.
Yeah.
She's not always friendly.
No. That's what I...
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing that I'm trying kind of say, is that some deities have their, you know, there's very facets to I think that people see deities sometimes in 2D. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's this kind of like, or 1D. And that's all there are. You know, they're very complex.
Or they're just one sentence out of a compendium.
Yeah, exactly. And there's
many... Just like it's one definition. Like,
and there's many perspectives. No. You know? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like,
I know.
Well, and Anatu is a goddess. I would personally not offer her a salad. If I were a vegetarian, I think I might pony up and offer her meat on occasion. I don't want to tick off a warrior goddess.
With a little vegetable. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, oh, you want a carrot? No, she doesn't want a carrot.
No, well, you know what? There are limits for adaptation of things. You know, and that's one adaptation that you can't do. You know. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tess, and the author of Anointed. And several other books. I mean, you have a book coming out. I want to talk about that because that's very important. You're the author of Whisper of Stone, Natib Qadish, Modern Canaanite Religion, and also Anointed, Devotional Anthology for Deities of the Near and Middle East. But you're coming out with another one, right?
I am. It's called The Horned Altar.
Yes.
Canaanite Magic, and it will be coming out through Llewellyn. We're still deciding on a date. But,
very exciting, very exciting.
Yeah,
but, so you don't know if it would be this year or next year? Is that it? No. It will be this
year.
It
will be this year or next year. Well, I should say 2012
to
2013, somewhere around in there.
Okay. So we will be waiting for you and waiting for your wonderful, wonderful book. And this is about magic, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay, Canaanite magic.
I can actually give you a rundown of what it's going to cover if you like.
Absolutely. We want to know. Some people are a little bit shy about that. Oh, I can't reveal. But just go ahead if you feel it.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, the first half of the book, it's called Rediscover, and it's going to cover all of the ancient techniques.
Okay.
And the second part of the book, called Rekindle, that one is going to cover the ancient techniques taken into modern times.
Ooh.
You can see where it came from and where it's headed to.
Very good.
And it's going to cover the magic theory from a Canaanite perspective. So we don't work with energy, per se. We work with nafsh, which is, in Hebrew, nephesh, which means soul.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fundamentally different idea than energy.
Yes.
So I'll cover that, life in Canaan, what it was like to be born, live, and die in Canaan, ethics, which is very important when you're talking about magic, sacred timekeeping, geography, their perception of the body, herbs and stones, alphabets, the Ugaritic alphabet, the Phoenician alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet, and the Proto-Canaanite alphabet should all be covered in there. Prayers, blessings, curse, divination, symbolism, care and feeding of the deities. Oh yeah.
I'm just kind of laughing, not because I'm laughing at what you're saying, but I'm laughing about the curses, because nobody puts curses anywhere anymore. And it's not that I like people to be cursed, but I really love curses just because of the structure of them. They're very interesting. As a spell, they're very interesting. And I'm actually writing a book about it, and it's called Opening Pandora's Box. And
I like that. That's a great title. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm going to do some revelations on very, very specific spells and curses, and analyze them, in a way that you can then dismantle them and actually, reverse it or protect yourself against them.
Oh, I like that.
So it's kind of it's really not how to. Well, it will be how to, but it will be also how to take it out and cut that. What are the main parts of the curse that you can actually count? Some of them you can't. I mean, it's just not possible. Right. But I didn't know. That takes us. I wanted you to continue here about the book. Go ahead, and then we'll go. And I asked you a little bit more about this. Go ahead.
Sure,
so then,
sure.
So you said prayers.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Ethics, cleansing, modern divination, steps for creating magic, sacred time, sacred places, magic words, recipes, incense, oils, amulets, and understanding your body, so some meditations from a Canaanite perspective, and choosing a Canaanite name. And I also cover how to do animal divination through using cards instead of actually looking at animal fetuses or malformed animal fetuses.
Yes.
However, it's not a technique you want to use on an everyday basis, even with the cards, because a lot of the portents are pretty dire.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So you have to be in a difficult state and ready to hear the information.
This is very interesting because the thing about the tarot and all of this mass, things that people do, and I love the tarot, don't get me wrong, but it's that people don't really have this notion of just stop and come back three months after this. Okay, just don't come back tomorrow.
Right.
because they don't really, they want and want and want and want, and then they don't really understand that you have to have, you know, an urgent question in order to, you know, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, and you have to want to communicate with the deities. Mm-hmm. You have to be ready to listen to what they have to say, and sometimes it won't be what you want to hear.
Absolutely. Oftentimes.
You know? That's
Oftentimes.
how it is.
Well,
it's
you know,
like mom and dad telling you that piece of advice is really crucial, that just, you don't want to go there.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I always say to people, I don't do tarot. I do an oracle. It's a very ancient, not ancient,
but it's...
I've actually
been stepping away from tarot.
Really? Me
Over
too.
The years,
Me
I
too.
do tarot
Me too.
less and less. Because
I don't do
like
it. I don't do it. I don't do it. I do what I do is I do. It's called the Oracle of Bellini, and it's a 17th century oracle. It's not even. I mean, they're cards, but it's not even tarot. The meaning is completely off. It's a different system.
Right.
And it was used to tell the future of Napoleon. Actually, those were the very first cards that actually told Josephine that she was going to be the empress, and also Victor Hugo and a lot of people. I mean, it's French, so it's kind of very concealed into that particular area, but it's very interesting, and it's scarily accurate. So I don't do tarot at all. I mean, I did for a long time, but then it's just not.
I feel like it doesn't really fit in with the culture that I explore, and it doesn't quite fit in as much with the deities. They can use it to talk through.
Yes.
But there are other things that I feel are more conducive to that communication. I do a lot of dream work. Sometimes I will roll dice or flip a coin, because the whole yes-no oracle is very traditional.
Yes.
And there is some evidence that they would have rolled dice for divination.
Yes.
Yes. So I typically do that sort of thing. I look for omens.
Yes.
In nature. Sometimes I look. Sometimes I'll do coffee grounds reading, which is a later idea, but it comes from the same area.
Yes. It's very interesting. So you're covering that in the book also?
Oh, yes. Even
that's
coffee
amazing.
reading.
That's great. Reading. That's great. Because that's one of the areas that we don't really... I mean, there's a lot of tea leaves kind of thing, but there's no coffee. No coffee readings.
Oh, man, and I love my Java.
I know. But, you know, people don't...
I love my tea, but I love my Java too, you know?
I know. And what else you get on that book?
That's about it.
That's about it. Well, it's a lot. Yeah, it's really a lot. I'm just kind of like...
Yeah. It's I have information on there on how to perceive your body and how to perceive Canaanite life. So it kind of gives you more of a slice of what it was like back then and how you can take that information and bring it into your life now.
Yes. Yeah. That's very, very good.
Including the curses. But I also outline what is lawful magic from what is unlawful magic. Unlawful magic would have gotten you in big trouble and could have even gotten you executed.
Wow.
So you can curse, but you have to use the curses in a more lawful or culturally acceptable sort of way.
Now, that takes us to that point that I wanted to get back to you on. We're almost like going like, oh my God, it's the show over? No, wait, there's something else. So there's this ethics problem here. I mean, we all know that when you have ethics in neo-pagan, people talking about ethics, they all go back to Wicca, and that "and harm none, do as you will." And also, most of the people, even if they're not Wiccans, they do have that as a kind of reference. How do we work this in here? I mean, not that, but something else that would be. How about ethics in the Canaanite religion?
Well, sure. There are basically 3 different kinds of hatzah. which is misdeed or sin. A lot of people don't like to hear that S word, but there it is.
Yes.
The idea that misdeed could cause a blockage between you and your relationship with the deities and you and your relationship with the community. So you really didn't want to do this sort of thing. Basically, you don't want to commit ritual khatsa, which we covered a little bit before. So ritual without wrong intent or doing a wrong action in ritual, or being present in a ritual that's conducted wrongly. You really got to be careful with that. Basically, if Susie wants to smite the other woman and get back her man, and you're present at that ritual, you will have to do some cleansing to get rid of that hatsa later. Or just don't go there to begin with. There's an idea of... just don't even go there, you know? There's an idea that you want to be careful what you do is in keeping with the common morality, the common ethics, and the laws and mores of the particular society that you're living in, as well as probably Canaanite society, too. You don't want to cross certain lines like incest, adultery, murder, unless you are killing someone to protect your family, your city, your community, your property. You don't commit murder. And then there's also, you don't want to commit hatsa in accordance to foreign policies, too. So if you visit another locale, do what they do, but also, in the same token, try to balance it to where you are not undermining what you know and believe to be right from your own cultural standpoint.
Yes. Yeah. That's very interesting. Very, very constitutional, isn't it? It's very kind of...
Yeah, it really is. That's
very
where
good.
They probably got it.
I think so. So, is that similar to the concept of karma? I mean, is there anything kind of like related to that?
Well, there is a certain idea of cause and effect. If you do something, you will be affected. There's a particular king, King Kurtu, who goes out and promises at the temple of Ugarit to bring her lots and lots of gold and silver if he happens to assure Princess Kurai as his future wife. Well, Ugarit lets about 7 years slide between that vow. And in that 7 years, he's forgotten about it. So she strikes him mortally ill. And it takes an act of Ilu, and Ilu alone, creating a golem, no less, to relieve the man of his illness before everything is made right again. And that's what we have left to us from a literature standpoint. What we have left to us ritual standpoint is that you can visit certain shrines, you can make certain offerings, you can go to a priest and ask to be cleansed, and the priest will pour oil on your head, olive oil, usually. And you can do certain deeds to make up to atone for what you had done, depending on the severity.
Very
but a lot of times, it's a very mechanical process. You know, there's not a whole lot of groveling you got to do. It's you do X, Y, and Z, and you're fine.
Yeah. Now, is there any let's just say, if you're going to do something that you know that it's kind of not easy, you will ask for the protection of some deity in order to be standing by you when you're doing it?
If you know that you're going to commit a hatsa, I don't
There's
know
that There's no god or goddess that can help you. Sorry.
Yeah. They would put it to you as you knew what you were doing. You knew it was wrong.
So if you knew
that
don't Don't go there.
Yeah, having said that, if you have done something, because, sometimes you do something in error, and that's the whole idea. The idea is the hatsa is done in error.
Yeah.
You can go back and correct that by making the appropriate offerings or by being cleansed. And there's the idea, too, that misdeed mars your beauty.
Oh, that's very
interesting. Think about
interesting.
that one for a moment.
So people there are beautiful.
Ugly deed. If you do an ugly deed, it mars your beauty. There's a deeper idea of beauty. Yes. It's a pleasantness.
Yes.
So it's not just the physical.
You're become bitter. You become
absolutely.
Yeah, you go sour like the soup.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and then there is actually a prayer of rectitude that you can make that was made back in ancient times and would have been accompanied by certain offerings that it sounds a great deal like Yom Kippur. It sounds a great deal like a cleansing rite should. If it goes through saying, if I have committed a misdeed in accordance to this group of people, in accordance to that group of people, in accordance to another group of people, I ask that it be borne on this sacrifice, and I ask that the deities cleanse me as a chatzah.
Yes. That's amazing. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, this was Tess Dawson, author of The Whisper of Stone, Natib Qadish, Modern Canaanite Religion, and also Anointed, a devotional anthology for the deities of the Near and Middle East. We have a lot of people on the chat room having a lot of conversations about this and posting a lot of things, about you and saying that they loved it and that they want you back. So
they're not running after me with pitchforks and torches?
No. Don't think so. So I just wanted to thank everybody. Indigo, also Cynthia Cassandra, Maestro Nestor, and all of the other people here, Titus Lupus, and also Lily Green Dragon. Thank you so much for being on our chat room and animating all of this conversation. Is absolutely amazing. We love that. Now, Tess, I would ask you to just finish our conversation. I don't like to call it interview, you know that. Our conversation for today with a blessing, a Canaanite blessing to all of us. Is that okay?
Sure, I can give you a very short and sweet one that you all can use.
Oh, that's
great. If you like.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Yishulam lekumu. And it means, may there be peace to you all. The idea of shalom means not only peace, but also completion and wholeness and well-being.
That's great. Thank you so much for being on Witch Talk.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Don't go anywhere, Tess, because I'm going to talk to you in a minute, okay? I'm just going to finish the show, and I'll be right with you, okay?
Sure.
Okay. So that's basically it. This was Witch Talk for today. Tomorrow we'll have Monday we'll have a Portuguese version of it. Have a wonderful week, and next week we're not having it. Next week we're not having it. For 2 weeks, we'll be back 2 weeks from now. Have a wonderful